to its colour and texture, wallpaper is back in fashion. But many of those new to wallpaper are a little uncertain about how to hang wallpaper. Hi, I'm Mirjana, compulsive home decorator, and this is John Howe, wallpaper expert. Together we're going to show you how easy it is to hang wallpaper. Look at all these wonderful wallpaper colours. Paint simply can't match wallpaper's richer look and feel. The other great news about New Zealand-made Vision wallpapers is that it's very easy to hang, thanks to the superior technology incorporated in its manufacture. Here's a checklist of tools that will help the job go smoothly. 80 and 120 grit sandpaper, water trough, trimming knife, tape measure, straight edge, scissors, smoother or a paper hanging brush, size and a bucket, sponge, plumb line, and last but not least, a pencil. Oh, and by the way, a spirit level may also come in handy. Both of our rooms have been prepared in advance, but if you need to find out more about the important steps in wall preparation, you'll find more information in the last section of this video. Just a reminder about the importance of applying a good coat, maybe even two, of size to the wall surfaces. Size not only seals the wall surfaces, but it reacts with the pasted wallpaper, creating a slight slipperiness, which makes it easier to slide the wallpaper into position. Now let's relax and take a little time to read the instructions on the label, which also identifies the pattern match of the wallpaper you have chosen. There are 3 types of wallpaper pattern matches: straight match, random match, and half drop. Measure one wall from ceiling to skirting board, then add 5 centimetres top and bottom to allow for trimming. With a straight or random match, every length is the same and will match directly. Let's take a quick look at half drop patterns and textures. This paper is described as a half drop because the following length needs to be offset to match the preceding drop length. Cut the first length, remembering to add 5 centimetres top and bottom to allow for trimming. Lay it on the table, pattern side up. Now the second length will need to be offset. In this case, the pattern repeats every 52 centimetres, so we look for the pattern match at the halfway point, hence the description of half drop. It's easy if you look for a distinctive shape or patch of colour that catches your eye. Once you've made the match, trim off the top piece of waste and put it to one side. Number the lengths by making a pencil mark on the top back area of trim, indicating the sequence and direction in which each length will be hung. Now you understand what a half drop is, consider yourself an expert. In our planning, it's important to think about the ideal point at which to start. Where you start is subject to the design of your wallpaper and your room. The general rule is to start in a corner and work away from the main source of natural light, with the aim of finishing in the least noticed corner. However, if hanging a wallpaper with a distinctive pattern, it is important to consider the room's focal point. For example, with a centrally located fireplace, the first join would need to be centred and the succeeding lengths hung in the direction of both corners. In this room, we are starting with the full length next to the bay window. Once again, planning to finish in the least noticed corner, directly opposite. With a plumb bob, mark a vertical line from this point down. Once the line is steady, place a pencil mark every 20 to 30 centimetres, just like so. It's important to establish true vertical. Window and door architraves are seldom true, so don't use them as a reference. Ready pasted means just that. To activate the paste, all you need to do is to run it through a water trough like this. Place a towel under the trough in case of spills, and then fill it 2/3 with lukewarm water. Re-roll each cut length of wallpaper from the bottom with the pattern on the inside. Fully immerse for 15 seconds. And then slowly draw the paper, taking it behind the wire out of the trough. Now I have to wait 3 minutes for the paper to relax. Relax, that's wallpaper speak for time to expand.
If you hang your paper too quickly, what's going to happen is the paper will actually expand while it's on the wall, and you'll end up with peaking joins.
The traditional method is to book pasted paper while it relaxes. Simply fold the pasted sides together with a larger fold at the top to indicate the top section. The advantage of this technique is that you don't have to rush to hang the wallpaper. Depending on the temperature, you can leave booked lengths of wallpaper for extended periods. Now let's get back to John, working with the paper I booked earlier. Unfold the top section of the booked paper and position against the plumb line. Let the extra you've allowed for trimming to loosely overlap onto the ceiling moulding, and in this example, the adjacent architrave. Working from the centre, smooth out the large bubbles before making certain the edges are firmly in contact with the wall. Don't worry if there are still a few very small air bubbles. Wallpaper is a living thing, and as it dries, these will gradually disappear. Fit the paper around any obstacles, using the back edge of a putty knife and your scissors to make the appropriate cuts. Crease the paper into the ceiling moulding with the back edge of a putty knife and then trim off the excess waste using a straight edge and a sharp knife. Wipe off any paste that might have transferred to surrounding surfaces. Now gently unfold the lower half of the pasted paper and carry on smoothing it into place. Here's a handy tip. Keep your knife angle as flat as possible to the cut and snap off the used bit of blade after making 2 cuts. That way you reduce the risk of tearing. Large pattern or muted pattern, starting from a central position or a corner, you will encounter this situation where you only need a narrow strip before continuing onto the adjacent wall. So what do? The correct method is to measure from the last length into the internal corner. Check the measurement top and bottom and then add 15 millimeters to the widest of these measurements. Transfer this combined measurement to your next length of paper and using a straight edge and knife, or scissors if you feel confident, cut your strip of paper. Once it's pasted and relaxed, butt it against the previous length and smooth into the corner and adjacent wall. Don't be tempted to bring a full width of wallpaper around the corner. This is where you will often see first-timers make a real botch up, resulting in puckering and splits when the paper dries. Establish plumb again on the adjacent wall, allowing the second strip of wallpaper to cover the first overlap by 10 millimeters. When pasting vinyl paper over vinyl, a special PVA vinyl adhesive, like Sure Stick, must be applied to the edge to ensure a good bond. It's important to wipe all traces of vinyl adhesive from the finished surface. Now I can continue with full width lengths until I encounter the next obstacle. Light switch, John. How do I deal with this?
Turn the power off first. Position the wallpaper loosely over the fitting. Mark the corners. Lift the paper and use scissors to cut from the centre to each corner, producing 4 triangles. Crease each of these against the base of the fitting and then trim using a straight edge and a sharp knife. Most modern fittings have snap-on covers, which makes this job a lot easier.
The method for getting a neat fit around circular electrical fittings is as follows. Mark the centre, then make a series of radiating cuts with your scissors. Be careful not to overcut. Scribe the wallpaper in with the back edge of your putty knife. And once again, trim and wipe off any paste marks from the switch. Hanging wallpaper around window and door frames utilises the same basic steps. Some older style windows have scalloped sills, which may suggest a wee bit of a challenge. However, if you remember the basic techniques for papering around a circular light fitting or a switch, you shouldn't have any difficulties. Hang the full length, first butting the edge against the previously hung length. Let the excess loosely overhang the architrave. With the smoother, or wallpaper hanging brush, smooth down to the top of the architrave. With the wallpaper in this position, make a mark where the corner of the architrave touches. Gently lift the paper and make a diagonal cut from the waste side of the paper to the mark. Give the paper an overall smooth before using the back edge of a putty knife to crease the paper into the architrave. Trim off the waste using a straight edge and a sharp knife. Once again, wipe the architraves with a damp sponge to ensure no paste adheres to the surface. I'm going to leave John to get on with finishing the room while I show you one or two last things. When it comes to outside corners, the approach is basically the same as for internal corners, but allow for 30mm wraparound. The next length is overlapped 5mm in from the corner edge. Once again, remember, if you're hanging on vinyl, you will need to use a PVA adhesive for vinyl on vinyl to ensure a good bond. Well, that's pretty much the basics of wallpapering. I've had a lot of fun and I just love the finished result. And you will too when you decorate with wallpaper. Stick around, or should I say stay pasted, for all you need to know about preparing wall surfaces. If you're starting with new jibboard, lightly sand the plaster stopping with 120 grit sandpaper to get rid of imperfections. Use a horizontal sanding action to stay true to the wall surface. If you sand up and down on the joints, you're likely to cause indentations that will show through the wallpaper. Dust thoroughly and then apply a liberal coating of size. You can buy size in granulated form or this ready mixed latex size, which is formulated to make it very easy to slide the paper into position. If the existing wallpaper is vinyl, you're in luck. The top layer peels off a treat. The backing paper can then be scraped off easily once it has been soaked with a little warm water. Once that's out of the way, you'll need to give the walls a coat of fresh size, and when it's dry, you'll be ready to start hanging your new wallpaper. If you're redecorating an old home and the walls are already covered with layers of old wallpaper, you'll need to strip it so you can start with a nice smooth surface. This Cinza wallpaper tool scores the surface, so either steam or a mixture of DIF wallpaper stripper can penetrate the layers and rapidly dissolve the old paste. Enamelled bathroom and kitchen walls need to be washed with sugar soap, rinsed clean, sanded with 80 grit sandpaper, dusted and coated with size. Nothing really to get your feathers ruffled about. Many home decorators will be familiar with jibboard that has become yellowed with age or stained from weeks of waiting for a leak to be repaired. If the room you're decorating fits this description, the walls will need to be coated with an oil-based pigmented sealer. Otherwise, show-through could be a problem. Remember the correct steps. Plaster stopping will need to be lightly sanded with 120 grit sandpaper. Next, apply one coat of pigmented sealer. This should be thinned approximately 5% to ensure it penetrates. Once it's dry, sand with 80 grit sandpaper. And then apply a liberal, even coat of size. Use a damp sponge to wipe off any splashes from mouldings, architrave and skirting boards. Preparation is worth getting right because it will give you a much better finished result. There's also a belief out there that it's quicker to paint. But think about it. If I were to paint this room, I'd have to sand, undercoat, sand again, and apply at least 2 good finishing coats in order to get a good result. Along with the heavier work of painting, there's also the hassle of cutting in and masking around the fittings and architraves. Once you get into the swing of wallpapering, it's lots of fun. And in my opinion, much easier than painting.